Over to That's Good Sports podcast. I'm Brandon Perna here with Will Keys, all the way from Sacramento, California. Or right, Sacramento?
You got it.
So my friend Drew Lynch just did some stand-up comedy in Sacramento.
I should have gone and seen him.
You should have. I didn't know he was going to be there. I would have told you. This is the That's Good Sports podcast. Today, we're talking, like usual, half of this podcast is about the Broncos and the second half about the NFL. And there's football news happening. There's real shit to talk about. Will and I started doing this in June through July. Basically, we made it through the dry months to prove that we could make it through the wet months. And today, for Broncos, we're going to talk a little bit about training camp, Case Keenum, Courtland Sutton, the wide receiver, and what we expect, from the team based on ridiculous practice takes. And then for NFL news, we've got Eric Decker signing with the Patriots. The Hall of Fame game is coming up tonight. Baker Mayfield, Tyrod Taylor's RV. And some thoughts on the Hall of Fame inductees, maybe sans Terrell Owens.
Definitely sans Terrell Owens.
The Hall of Fame said they're not even going to acknowledge him, so we'll get into that. And you can listen to this podcast, like I say, every episode on iTunes, on Podbean. There's a link in the description if you want to listen to it like a real podcast. We do them every Thursday. They're here on the That's Good Broncos channel as well if you like to look at our stupid faces. But please download the link, subscribe to whatever the fuck you do for podcasts, and rate it on iTunes. Everybody's been doing a great job giving us 5-star ratings and leaving comments. You do that on iTunes because that's how they say whether or not your podcast is worth a damn. So thanks for everybody who's done it, and everybody else, please keep doing it. Okay, moving on, Will. That was not an insert either. That was just a natural conversation to start this podcast.
Correct.
And before we get into the Broncos news, I wanted to address some comments that I noticed this last week about my content, Will and I's podcast. It's just some really hurtful things that I needed to air out. So the first one is coming from a Reddit user, Colorado John Q. And like I mentioned, I think before, the comments that are both complimentary and then just slam on me are the ones that hurt the most. So on Reddit, John said, and this was one of my video posts that somebody put up in Reddit, my favorite place on earth. Well, I've tried to watch this several times, and while I think this dude and myself would have a great time hanging out and probably be good friends, I just am not a fan of his product. But one love for Broncos country, not trying to hate.
Not trying, but you did a pretty solid job there.
Well, you did a really good fucking job, John Q.
Is this the same John Q as the Denzel Washington movie where he holds up a hospital to get his son a heart transplant?
Yeah, John Q. That's not even one of Denzel's top 10 movies. So suck it.
Not at all.
Suck it. See, that one hurts. Comments like that hurt because the guy's like, me and this guy would probably be friends. I just think he sucks at what he's doing. Basically what he just told me.
No offense. I think you're a fine dude, but everything you make is just garbage.
Yeah. So, but I do have to give credit to Newer D Helmet for coming to my defense, who commented, I realize that opinions can't be wrong because they're, opinions. That said, you're factually wrong. His videos are objectively awesome, and your brain is throwing a verifiable error code. So, Newer D Helmet, thank you very much. I thought that was a great response, a great comment. And nothing got too dirty there, Wasn't too mean-spirited, and I agree with Newer D Helmet. And the other comment I wanted to talk about, maybe just the meanest comment I think I've seen in a long time, and it was on the last one of my YouTube videos, and it's from Nug Loker. Somebody said they looked up Loker, and it's like
I think it's something to do with hard drugs.
Yeah, like a meth pipe or something. I don't know what the fuck it is, because I only do soft drugs.
We don't endorse meth on this podcast.
Yeah.
No. Until Big Meth gets in our pockets and starts giving us those ad dollars, then maybe. But
this episode sponsored by meth. So Nug Loker, he wrote to me, bro, I give it to you for chasing your dream, but you should go to Plan B. You're overly corny and your attempts at humor fall flat. Time to reassess. Now, you're overly corny. Your is the wrong your. I believe he spells reassess wrong.
Yes.
And that one, man, he told me to give up on my dreams. Like, what can you say to some stranger that's like tougher than that? Just give up on your dream because you suck at it, you fucking idiot. That's what I love. That's the way I saw that comment.
What is Plan B though? Like,
I don't have one anymore. I'm all in, Will.
It's lay down in Plan B at this point is like lay down in the gutter and wait to die.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, I've spent 5 years working on this. It'd be really hard for me to go back to a regular job with a regular boss.
What does this guy expect? Like, you just read it and you're like, damn. Well,
yeah,
he's got a point. He's got a point. I should really just pack it in.
It's you got to be thin-skinned, you know, or if you're thin-skinned, you're going to let those things crush you. Like, honestly, I'm at a point where I've seen so much. Most people are really supportive, and that's what makes it easy. But I've seen enough of this stuff where you don't think about it at all. I find it really funny, and I tweeted the Nug Loker one saying like it was my dad commenting on my videos again. I think these are actually hilarious, but it's I think you bring up a point, like, what's the intent behind it? Like, I'm going to read that and go, you know what? Time to reassess my life. Like, if somebody told me like to stop making religious jokes or something and that I should go to church, I'm going to be like, you know what? This Sunday, I'm going to be back I'm going to be in church and change everything about the way I live my life because of that comment. It's just, I don't know. It's a funny thing. Comments.
So honestly, like the most hurtful comment to me last week was, so we were talking about for like the first 5 or 6 minutes about my trip to Mexico and, encountering HGH. And just like a little like personal talk, just like kind of, shooting the shit for the first few minutes of the podcast. And then someone commented, podcast starts at 6 minutes with the timestamp. Fuck you, dude. Fuck
you, man. You can't win, No. People are like, hey, you guys should talk more about like what's going on in your life to start the show. Like, just have some banter back and forth. And then you do that and somebody else is like, fuck that. I just want to hear about football, you idiots. And then if you don't talk about the Broncos enough, they're like, I came here for the Broncos. Why are you talking about the NFL, you fucking idiot?
That's my thing is like, if you're really like here just for the Broncos and like you're just here to get like that big time football fix like injected right into your veins, like I don't know why this would be the first place you go to, first of all.
I do.
Oh, I mean,
we're
just
the best, Will. We're the best.
Okay, no, I think yeah.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. I'm just trying to self-promote, you know what I mean? But
yeah. I take back my comment. Actually, we're the best we're the best at everything.
You want the real news, you come here, okay?
You want the fake news? Also come here.
It's like, I just wish if somebody didn't like it, they just didn't watch. But what's strange to me is like people watch and then tell you how much they hate you. That's the world we live in. And
then watch again next week to see if we brought up their comment.
Right. And see, that helps me.
It's genius.
And again, 95% of the people are really supportive. If I didn't have that, I would have failed and given up a long time ago. I think I was a little sensitive to these because we've teased in this podcast. I might have had some big news. I was in the process for getting a job at ESPN to write for Katie Nolan's show, her new show on ESPN Plus. called Always Late with Katie Nolan, and it's a comedy sports show. I applied for a whim because somebody on Twitter told me to as for a writer for sports comedy. And I was like, I could do that. And I got very far in the process and thought I was going to be possibly moving to New York, and it didn't happen. ESPN got a good enough look at me, and they said, no, you're not good enough. So I see these comments, and they just sting a little more because it's not just them. It's the corporate world and the fans. So,
well, on the bright side, like, do you really want to pay $2,500 a month for 200 square feet in New York?
No. I mean, exactly. And it was like $3,000 a month for –
yeah.
Like, yeah. The good news is, like,
closet.
Yeah, I wasn't intending to do it. It just kind of happened. I'm all in on this channel. Like, that was the plan for the season. So we'll get into talking Broncos now. One more comment was Alex DeHarsh, and he said, I'm scared the Broncos may never make another Super Bowl unless they steal a Colts quarterback. So, and that's true because John Elway, drafted by the Colts, Peyton Manning played for the Colts. So we need Andrew Luck to win a Super Bowl unless we dipped into the Vikings water and Case Keenum is, as you have put it, looks like the real deal Holyfield, Will. Why don't you update everybody on the Case Keenum hype that's been happening at Broncos camp?
So essentially he's looking like Joe Montana, basically. No, but like he hasn't thrown an interception. Well, yeah, he went like the first 4 or 5 practices without throwing an interception. He's getting the ball out quickly. He's basically, everything we haven't had since 2014, and it's really refreshing and nice to hear. And it's also really, really nice not to have to hear about a quarterback competition every day, like mostly a contrived quarterback competition.
Right. I'm actually was writing about that for today's video, like my recap for camp. And I agree, it's nice not to hear about it, but I feel like the media's pitching it like as this giant burden lifted off the players' shoulders, in that them having to answer questions about the quarterback was one of the hardest things they had to deal with last 2 years in camp. Like, people asking, who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Like, that was really hard for the players. And
I don't know.
How am I can't tell you.
Someone just like swallows cyanide just because he can't.
No more.
Take it anymore.
No more of these questions I'm getting paid to answer. Yeah. And I know how to answer it because they have told me several times how we address this situation. But the truth underneath it is that they have a quarterback, and that's the real burden lifted off of everybody's shoulders. And I think you can see it in the players. Like Emmanuel Sanders, I think, has been very excited. Chris Harris Jr. has been positive. Like, the defense, I think, notices it. And obviously the receivers are noticing like a difference already. And, I think it maybe leads into the next thing we're going to talk about. Like, the rookie receivers are looking good. And they are probably very good, and it helps that they have a competent quarterback getting them the ball. So how excited are you right now? Because next to Case Keenum, I'd list it like this for Broncos camp in terms of overexcitement. Because let's remember, they've had 2 days of padded practice, and they're basically just taking dropbacks and throwing footballs, which I did the other day with my friend, and I looked pretty fucking good too. And I hadn't thrown a football in months.
But were you wearing pads?
I was wearing a helmet. Okay. But that's because that's safety issues now.
Yeah.
Case Keenum 1 on the hype train. Sorry, I'm trying to put my hand in the right place. Courtland Sutton 2, and then Phillip Lindsay number 3. And then 4, Deshaun Hamilton.
Okay, I think it's Courtland Sutton at 1.
Ooh.
Then Keenum at 2. Hamilton, I think I don't know, Hamilton's not getting a ton of hype. I think, like, people who actually really know football are like, this guy is good because, like, he knows what to do on the field, and, like, he's a great route runner and everything, and he's got a high football IQ. But that's not going to get, like, a ton of hype from the fans because he's not going up in the corner of the end zone and, like, high pointing footballs.
Right.
It's something that like we're gonna notice like in the preseason, but it might not get people super excited right now. And then Philip Lindsay, like on day one of training camp, Philip Lindsay's stock was through the roof. We haven't really heard about him since, but I assume he's still, doing the same kind of things.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of attention being a Colorado guy, born and bred, and playing at CU. So it's hard because as a fan, I'm getting just as excited as everybody else, right? Like you hear 7 different members of the media or read them all tweeting the same thing, like, oh, crazy catch by Courtland Sutton in the end zone. Again, no pads. Who's the defensive back he's making the catch over? Again, no pads, just practice. But like you see the raw talent there, right? You see him looking like an athletic freak. I think it's easy to get excited about that. I'm going to be reserved until probably the 3rd preseason game where we get a good look at the starters for the longest period of time. But I think it is really hard to judge a wide receiver at training camp because the physicality really, I mean, maybe with the joint practices with the Bears, but Cody Latimer always looked good in training camp. So, and it's not right. And it's not just like their skill. It's like, how often are they going to actually get the ball in game situations? Because, Peyton Manning wasn't throwing the ball to Cody Latimer, Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, like they couldn't get past really their first reads. So, I want to see how often a guy like Courtland Sutton actually gets on the field, how many balls he's going to get thrown his way. And if I start seeing that in game action, like he's been compared to Randy Moss, he's been compared to AJ Green, like it's all an upside. But it's if he pans out, if Deshaun Hamilton pans out, if Bradley Chubb's as good as like he should be, like this could be an excellent draft for the Broncos. By the end of the season, we could look back and go, oh, fuck, Elway shifted directions and went from drafting horribly to having a great draft. And with guys that were drafted last year, hopefully some of them get better and we don't look at that draft as being as shitty as we currently do. Carlos Henderson looks like he's not going to ever return. So that might be a bust. But for young players, like the Broncos right now kind of have a good mix of a lot of young talent with, veterans on the team. And hopefully I think that's the real like solid mix for a successful football team. You need a lot of young guys that play well, like we saw with the Saints last year. And then you need those veteran guys like Demaryius Thomas and Chris Harris on the defense. And hopefully they're as awesome as they practice.
Yeah, no, it feels like right now, and just like based on early returns, which, you can't be sure really how they're going to pan out come game time or like come the regular season. But It looks like a team that's like built to succeed for the next 3 or 4 years, at least.
Yeah, it could be.
Depending
if Keenum's good, like, and the Broncos lock him down to a longer-term deal, that'll be great for the organization. Training camp, though, to me is like being 15 and being really good at masturbating and think you're going to be good at sex. Like,
doesn't always translate.
Let's see when the sex starts, which is the regular season. Yeah. And it's not week 1 either. Week 2. Like week 1 to me is the most unpredictable week in all of football because even the good teams still are like figuring shit out and they can get blown out that first week. So week 2, we'll see if the Broncos are good at sex. Just like we did last year when they beat the Cowboys and that was wrong. So
they're very good at sex for the first 3 weeks of the season, or 2 weeks, I guess. And then they just kind of, blew their load, so to speak.
What were you going to say? Go ahead.
So what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm like the more I know it is training camp, like the more I see Courtland Sutton getting talked about and like just the way that the veterans are talking about him and how reporters are talking about him, it really makes you wonder how he fell so far and whether it was just because he was an SMU guy rather than, I don't know, like an SEC guy or a Big Ten guy or a Pac-12 guy. And
Probably.
just got, an incredible steal.
I also think NFL scouts, like they're people, so they're unpredictable, and the way they evaluate things varies. And
correct.
They miss guys all the time. It's why the fucking Broncos took Brock Osweiler instead of Russell Wilson, or they drafted Paxton Lynch instead of waiting for like Dak Prescott, or I don't know, anything. Like just too many factors that make it unpredictable. The one thing I'll say, like the difference right now, and again, it's early, is nobody was talking about any Broncos receivers really this positively last year. Maybe like Khalif Raymond was getting overhyped, but
it was mostly all negative.
Right. And, the quarterback competition really was like stealing the show. And even then, like it was mixed reviews on anybody getting reps at the QB position. So positive consistently about Case Keenum. He's been smart with the ball. He's been putting the ball in places where only his guys can catch it. So those are all nice little things to have. I think Vance Joseph has an opportunity because of Case Keenum solely to be like the most improved coach of the year. So I think something people aren't talking about is like this might translate to success for Vance Joseph, and we might get a better idea of what kind of coach he is if he actually has a quarterback. So we'll kind of see how things shape up, and I think that's really it for Broncos news right now. Nothing crazy has happened. Injuries have been minor, so that's all positive. So we're going to jump into NFL news, and this is our NFL news transition.
Let's do it. NFL.
Man,
okay.
Solid transition, Will.
Anyway, Eric Decker has signed a 1-year deal with, wait for it, the New England Patriots. On a scale of 1 to not surprised at all, how not surprised are you?
Oh, I'm not surprised at all, Will. So 1 or 10? What am I doing? How do you rank it?
I said 1 to not surprised at all.
Okay. So I'm not surprised at all 1. Ooh.
Okay.
Make that confusing. Yeah, it was
really any number works.
It was reported, he had been talking to them. And let's be honest, Eric Decker is a perfect fit in New England.
Yep.
To catch footballs. 1, he is white. 2, he is handsome. Basically, those are the 2 most important things you need to be a wide receiver for the Patriots. A handsome white guy. It's because we've addressed that Tom Brady is extremely racist, so that's a big reason behind it. I think Eric Decker, free agent, maybe one of the better available free agent wide receivers. He's a smart player.
Shout out Des Bryant.
Right. Des Bryant would never fit in New England. That's a place that demands discipline, right? And right now, the Broncos training camp, players are excited. People are having fun. It's the thing you would never see at a Patriots training camp. The more we learn about it, the more we see that it is miserable for players, but it results to wins on the field. So that's why they put up with it. Eric Decker going there, he spawned the Big Dick Player Award. Like season one of That's Good Broncos, I called him Big Dick Decker in an episode. Just like a throwaway under my breath sort of the line. And it got a ton of comments. So I was like, well, better say that again. And it turned into an award. And to see him go to the Patriots feels not just like a betrayal to Broncos, but to me, to the Big Dick player. Like, I was fine watching him in New York and Tennessee, and then he goes to my fucking sworn enemy. I don't feel good about it, and I think he's going to do well there. I think. Yeah. What is he going to be, like the third receiver or fourth?
Well, yeah. So we should mention that the reason they signed him is because Jordan Matthews got hurt, and I think they cut him.
Yeah, with a bad hamstring.
He was on a 1-year deal. They didn't put him on IR. They just, released him. So he's in New England now, so he's not going to be able to spend too much time in the sun anymore. So he'll get nice and pale, just what they like.
He'll be as pasty as possible.
Yeah. So we were saying this before the show, too. Like, this could end up being a situation where he's really good and he has, 1,300 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. Or it could be a situation like with – I don't know, Reggie Wayne or Chad Johnson, or, you think about a lot of veteran free agents that they've signed in the past that just never panned out.
Right.
They barely get on the field.
Yeah. But I think it's because basically right now in the Patriots roster, their receivers are Edelman, Chris Hogan, and then that third spot, Cordarrelle Patterson is competing there.
He doesn't seem like a fit at all for them. I don't know.
I mean, athletically he does, but yeah, I mean, he's not
a route runner at all.
It's, behind him, maybe Malcolm Mitchell, Philip Dorsett. So, I mean, those are the guys Decker's going to be competing against to get on the field. If your starting three receivers are Decker, Hogan, and Edelman, I mean, at this point, are they all just going to be running crossing routes? I mean, that's basically all they fucking throw in New England anyway. So Patterson's probably their downfield threat now, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know if Decker will get on the field. It's a mystery. But I feel like if he does, he's going to get a lot of balls there. He did decent in Tennessee. I think they'll use him in the red zone because he's a big dude.
He is.
Nice target to have in the red zone. But I don't wish him well. So
yeah, he's also definitely lost a step in the last few years.
Yeah, doesn't have his quickness, and he was never the fastest guy anyway. But
he could get separation back in the day. But I really can't.
He would get separation and trip over his own feet on the way to the end zone.
Feet or trip over his dick a couple times,
as I pointed out.
Yeah. I can't wait for the Patriots to roll out. I'm gonna call it their blitzkrieg offense with Rex Burkhead, James Devlin, Chris Hogan, Julian Edelman, and Eric Decker. Oh, and Rob Gronkowski all at the same time. It's gonna be really something to watch.
So much speed there.
Yeah.
Speaking of tight ends, I watched a video. It was an NFL Network interview with Kyle Rudolph, and they asked him what the difference was between Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins. The title of the video was Kyle Rudolph details the difference between Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins. I was like, oh, cool. I really wanted to know what he thought might be the differences. I don't know. Keenum extends plays a little bit. You got to stay on your routes longer, or I don't know. I wanted to see something, and he detailed nothing about the differences between them. They asked him the question, and he gave the most pro answer, saying, it's really just about you adjusting to a new quarterback, making sure you learn your responsibilities. It's not just a quarterback. We got a new offensive coordinator, so I'm learning that system. And it was the most misleading, disappointing video. Details the difference, and he said jack shit about it. So it pissed me off because I thought I was going to get some insights about two guys that could have been Broncos quarterbacks. We now have Keenum, and I know Kyle Rudolph has taught me nothing about the differences between those quarterbacks. So
yeah, he's Case Keenum, he's a really nice guy. Kirk Cousins is also a really nice guy. Doesn't cheat on his wife, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what I think the difference is between Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins. Seriously. I think Kirk Cousins, if you're building an offense around him, you just want an offense that's built on speed, because he's got the arm to get the ball to the sideline and get the ball deep to those guys. He really excelled when his receiving core was made up of Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, Jamison Crowder, those guys. Whereas with Case Keenum, he has a little bit, I don't know, he has a tougher time firing the ball to the sidelines. Like it gets there a little bit slower than someone like Kirk Cousins or, I don't know, someone like Andrew Luck who gets the ball to the sidelines really quick. So you want a guy like the receivers in Minnesota were perfect with Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, guys that had huge catch radiuses and could go up and get the ball and shield defenders from the ball. Basically perfect because the ball's not always going to be right there on the sideline for him with a guy, as opposed to a guy like Cousins. So I think the Broncos actually did a really good job getting guys who can go up and make acrobatic catches and shield defenders and basically do all the things that Diggs and Thielen could. And, like, throwing Courtland Sutton to that mix, like, I think he's a perfect receiver for Case Keenum.
Yeah, I think Keenum actually is going to have more – he's going to have offensive receiving weapons that fit him. He's going to have more of them, I think, in Denver because outside of Thielen and Diggs in terms of wide receivers, those are really the guys, right? So here you've got Sutton and Hamilton as possible options. The question marks, are going to be like Jake Butt, the tight end stuff. But I think that's a pretty solid evaluation on the differences between the guys.
Also, we don't know if Case Keenum does or does not cheat on his wife.
Exactly.
I would assume he doesn't, but there's no way of knowing at this point.
You just can't know. Maybe mid-season I'll dress up like an attractive woman and see if I can seduce him, get some sort of feel like, is he a good guy? Is he going to try to have sex with a beautiful woman that he meets at, TJ Maxx? I don't know.
I was going to say a bar, but I don't think Case Keenum goes to a lot of bars.
No, we shop at Ross, Kohl's, Keenum and I, so I'll pick him up there.
Even after that contract, he's still going to, like, Marshall's.
Right. And then I saw a video about the new helmet rule too, and I just wanted to give people the how the rule's written. So basically, it's going to be a penalty. Well, a player could get ejected if any of the three happen. Okay, so if a defender delivers a hit with an unobstructed path to his opponent and uses his head. If the player lowers his helmet to establish a linear body posture prior to hitting a player, or if contact was clearly avoidable and a player had options other than delivering a blow to the head. Now, that one's interesting. If contact was clearly avoidable,
sounds
the
like
whole point is to make fucking contact for a tackle, and I assume they mean contact to the head, but I don't know. This just feels like it's going to be a mess this season. This is last year's catch rule, basically the way I see it, and it's going to be good for us guys who talk about football because I feel like every week there's going to be one or two controversial hits that possibly affect games, especially with the ejection rule that I can talk about, and a bunch of people are going to be pissed off just like me and watch the videos or the commentary. But and I get the point of trying to be safer, but like lowering your head, like you're
that's what you do.
You hit players with your shoulder. So even when you go in, like your head drops. I don't know. It's going to be.
Thanks for the tutorial.
It's so subjective. They've already had issues with refs explaining the fucking rule to the Eagles. Two different refs said a hit was illegal, and the other guy said it was legal. So I don't know. It feels like a mess. I don't think it's going to actually make things too much safer, and I'm not optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you're never going to legislate the violence and, like, to put it bluntly, like, you're never gonna get head trauma out of football the way football is right now. It's kind of unavoidable. Like, you want to minimize it as much as you can, but to a certain extent, it's going to happen from time to time. And the best you can do is just try to minimize it and try to make things safer. But I think this is probably going to result in a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, a lot
More
of
so than an
tackles.
actual concussion, Will.
Some would say. Some might say that. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of missed tackles, I think. A lot of guys getting ejected. It's going to be kind of like the college football rule where they go back and review it and they see if, there was malicious intent or whatever and throw a guy out of a game after, looking at a replay for 30 seconds. It's going to make things really tough for defenders. Like everybody wants to make football like rugby where you're tackling guys with your shoulder and wrapping guys up as opposed to like hitting guys and getting them down just based on like the force of your body as a projectile. That's tough to do. It's tough to rewire defensive players' mindsets because the game is so fast and it's so, it's such a split-second type of game that, sometimes like you just got to get guys down the only way you can on defense.
And let's be honest. The best hits are when a target is defenseless. So
correct.
I don't know. It's tricky. It'll be interesting to watch. Football is actually happening tonight, Will. We've got the Hall of Fame game with the Bears and the Ravens. I've got my William the Refrigerator Perry shirt on to support the Bears today.
Love it.
It's the only Bears shirt I own. The Hall of Fame game to me is usually the least interesting game next to maybe the fucking Pro Bowl. It's an early preseason game, so I feel like teams are even more cautious about playing anybody relevant. But tonight, I think, could be interesting just for the fact that we might get to watch, get a good dose of Lamar Jackson playing quarterback for the Ravens. So that's
playing quarterback? You don't mean wide receiver? No, I'm just kidding.
He might be he'll throw a pass to himself.
I want RG3 to throw a deep ball to Lamar Jackson tonight.
There you go.
That'd make my day.
Is RG3 a Raven or a Bear?
No, he's a Raven.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't keep up. Like I just can't remember all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's not like it's your job or anything.
Who do you think will be better, the Ravens or the Bears? Trick question. It's definitely probably the Ravens.
That's a good question because I like Matt Nagy, who the Bears hired this offseason. I've always liked Mitch Trubisky, and they look like they've gotten some weapons around him with Allen Robinson and Trey Burton and those guys. Still waiting for Kevin White to step up. It'll happen one of these years.
Isn't he? Is he healthy?
I don't think he's ever been healthy, to be honest.
Yeah, he was out last season, right?
Yeah, you could just say that about any season and it would be true, I think.
Okay, yeah, Kevin White. Interesting. You might be right. I think the Bears' defense was decent last year.
Yeah.
The question is obviously Trubisky. I think he'll definitely be better not being head coached by John Fox. You're right, Matt Nagy. He's a better offensive fit for a guy with the skill set like Trubisky.
Yeah.
So, okay, fair enough.
We'll see.
We'll see. I mean,
we'll see if they can sign their first-round pick, which looks like an uphill battle right now for the Bears. Roquan Smith.
It happens.
Always I'm not a front office guy necessarily, but if I can give them any word of advice, generally a good idea to sign your first-round pick.
Yeah. The Chargers struggle with that every year, though, too.
Yeah, never easy for the Chargers.
Looks like injuries are biting the Chargers' ass again.
What else is new?
So the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, that's this weekend. We've got – who's going in? Refresh my brain.
All right, so we've got the aforementioned Terrell Owens, and then you've got Terrell Owens' main competition at wide receiver through the 2000s, Randy Moss, in addition to Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Brian Dawkins, who was a Bronco for 3 years.
Right.
And then the older guys, Jerry Kramer, who played for the Packers back in the 60s with Vince Lombardi, Robert Brazil. I'm not entirely sure who he played with. I want to say the Oilers, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, that's a name I don't know.
And Bobby Beathard, who was the front office guy for the 72-73 Dolphins and is also the grandfather of C.J. Beathard, who's the quarterback for the 49ers.
Okay, very cool. It's not Pat Bowlen, but
No.
glad the fucking Dolphins guy got in.
Yeah, well, one of these any day now we'll get Pat Bowlen in there.
Do you like watching the Hall of Fame if like a Broncos not going in or a player like all these guys I think deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, but like I don't know. I don't get excited to watch it. Like their speeches are really, really long.
We got some pretty good speeches last year. Like obviously both of us wanted to see Terrell Davis. And
Yeah.
I think, no matter what he said, we were going to like his speech.
Great job, Terrell. Best speech I ever heard, except for John Elway's and Shannon Sharp's and Gary Zimmerman.
I can't wait for Von Miller's speech. I think that's going to be great in, 15 years.
Yeah, it'll be streamed directly into our brains for some sort of new Apple technology where their company crosses the $10 trillion mark. Apple, worth over $1 trillion now in market value.
Who would have thunk it?
Hey, look at that reference to not football stuff, Will.
Hey, easy on that. Easy there.
Somebody's going to complain about that. What the fuck are you talking about, Apple?
We don't want people tuning out. God forbid you say anything even semi-political, but I don't want to start that. I don't want to start that.
People gave me shit for my Xbox,
Oh, like PS4 guys or?
Yeah, gamers are passionate, man.
Wow. Maybe get a life. But yeah, so back to the Hall of Fame. I thought LaDainian Tomlinson, as much as I hated him as a player, I thought he gave a really good speech last year. Brett Favre was 2 years ago, right? I'm going to say like that. I'm going to answer my own question and say yes. Morton Anderson, who was one of like 2 kickers in the Hall of Fame, I thought had a really, really good speech last year. And then Jason Taylor, I think, was pretty good too. So
okay, fine.
I mostly watched for Terrell Davis, but I ended up enjoying a lot of the speeches.
So here's the difference. You really like the Hall of Fame. You like the speeches. I get bored with them.
I don't know if I'm going to watch this year, though, because I sure as fuck am not going to watch Ray Lewis. I might watch.
He covers up murders, probably, or does them, or you just don't like him.
Well, I mean, it's hard to separate the two.
I guess out of all of these guys, honestly, I'm going to be most interested to see what T.O. says, and he's not going to be doing it at the Hall of Fame.
That's fair. That's fair.
Next to that, I think Randy Moss might be the most interesting. Yeah. Well, no, I think I would say Brian Dawkins is going to give the best speech.
Yeah, and like he was still good. Like he's not one of those guys who you're like, oh, I can't even remember that he played for the Broncos. He was very good on the Broncos in 2009 and 2010.
Yeah.
And then a little bit in 2011, but that was kind of where he fell off, understandably. And then, you got Jerry Kramer, who part of that Packers team, who like old pro football writers have been bitching about him not being in the Hall of Fame for like 50 years now. Because
so this will make them happy.
Yeah, everyone from that Packers team needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Every writer who still actually writes for a newspaper and does sports will have an article about him.
Yeah. Peter King's just licking his chops right now. Joe Horrigan's can't contain himself. Yeah, they're not going to rest until like the third string outside linebacker on that 64 Packers team has a gold jacket.
Right. Okay, well, in life. Let's wrap this podcast up with the final topic.
Let's do it.
This has been okay, so Baker Mayfield and Tyrod Taylor, they have an RV at training camp that only they're allowed into, right?
Correct.
And nobody knows what's inside.
No one except Tyrod, Baker, and God.
Okay. So what's your theory? What do you think's inside the RV?
So I think it's just their like clubhouse. Like I think it's like a tree house for like 10-year-old boys. Like they're playing some video games, maybe talking about which girls are cute, who they have a crush on. Yeah, I think it's just a place where guys can be guys.
Okay.
Also maybe meth.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Okay, lay it on me.
I think what's in that RV, Will, are the dead bodies of every previous Browns quarterback. And Baker Mayfield and Tyrod Taylor perform nightly seances, Satan-like rituals to rid the Browns of the curse that has been their quarterback conundrum. They are sending the souls of those former quarterbacks into hell, where they most certainly belong. And once they free the city of those spirits, one of those guys, Tyrod or Baker, will finally have success in Cleveland as a quarterback. And if you know anything about witchcraft, the best place to do it is in an RV. It's a mobile home-like device that if something goes wrong, you can just drive away from trouble. And you can keep it dark in there and nobody's going to know what's going inside. So I did get that from a source, a Browns beat writer. So take it for what it's worth.
You can just say anonymous source.
Anonymous source. His name is Gary Smith.
Old Gary Smith, always giving me the scoops. Yeah, so maybe a little bit of not quite like a Rosemary's Baby situation, but
right,
trying to cast out demons. Like they've got, I don't know, Kelly Holcomb's body strung up and trying to, expel some dark forces.
Yeah, they turned Tim Couch into an actual couch in there. Brady Quinn, they actually embalmed Brady Quinn so that they can look at his perfect body and face all the time.
Yeah. Turn Derek Anderson into a bearskin rug.
Right. And so that's basically what it is. And that's basically the end of this podcast. Yeah. Please, what I want to know from anybody listening who's made it this far, what do you think is in the RV? What do you think's in the Browns quarterback RV? Let us know in the comments. Again, you can listen to this on Podbean, iTunes, where the fuck you listen to podcasts. It's like a real podcast. There's a link in the description here. Will Keys is on Twitter at WillKeys6. I'm on Twitter at Brandon Perna. And thanks for listening. We'll be every Thursday we do this. Every Thursday we'll be doing it for the season. So that's we've got a game to preview next week. How about that? Yes, we do. We'll be able to talk about real football. Fuck yeah. Somebody rang my doorbell. Just looking outside. It's probably a solicitor. And that's it. Thanks for listening.